Okay. Cool.
Excuse me. I'm almost breaking something in every room.
Oh, you're fine.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. So this is just a sentence that like maybe you could prompt you to complete. Like, I believe students learn best in an environment where they feel, like, what do you think is important to cultivate in the environment that helps students learn?
I believe students learn best in an environment where they feel heard and valued and seen. And I also feel they learn best whenever they're actually encouraged to bring parts of themselves that might make them different, or that, I don't know, they want to share with the group. But bringing themselves into the curriculum and into the classroom.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you consciously create an environment where that can happen?
I feel like it really starts with how they feel right when they walk in, with what they see, what they're surrounded with.
Sure.
So I try to make sure that things surrounding us in our room mirror the work that we actually have to do. So we're surrounded by books. We drink hot tea during writing lessons. The kids get to design the space, and they actually get to move chairs and tables. A lot of plants that we can share the responsibility of taking care of together. And all of that kind of helps build it up to where it's not just my space anymore, it becomes their space.
Yeah.
There's also no teacher desk. There's no assigned teacher space.
Yeah.
It's really all our space.
So it's creating like a sense of mutual participation in whatever you're about to do. We're all going to be doing it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing. So how do you feel like trust factors into your relationship with your students?
Trust is everything. And being 6th and 7th grade English teacher, I get to spiral up with some kids where I have them 2 years in a row. So it's really helpful having them as 6th graders and then having them again as 7th graders.
Yeah.
With kids that do need that extra added trust in order to be comfortable with sharing their writing. Writing's such a personal thing that I feel like I spend a lot of time earning their trust. And then once we do that, we can really get down to business.
Got it.
And then the real learning takes place.
Right, yeah. So it's almost an expectation when they come in, like, we are gonna have to trust each other in order to do the work that we need to do. Yeah.
And part of that is me sharing my stories and my writing with them too, so that they actually see me in that vulnerable role of writer.
Right.
To teach them, it is messy and it's okay, and everyone's still learning and growing, and it's hard to share some of your stories.
Yeah. How do you overcome the challenge that's presented by having middle school students who I think are sometimes like coming in with a lot of emotional vulnerability already? How do you overcome their maybe reluctance to open up and allow their personal lives to inform their work?
I think with that side of it, oddly enough, it starts with reading, with the texts that I choose to include in my curriculum and in my classroom, and their choice in those text selections. And I think when they hear me talking about characters that mirror something in themselves, it kind of allows them to test the waters without fully having to trust me just yet. And so bit by bit, just in the way I interact with others and the way that I talk about characters that we read about, the books that I choose to book talk in the beginning of lessons sometimes, all of those choices are sending the message that, like, you're seen, and you're important, and that you belong here.
Yeah, and maybe the fact that they can ask questions and have conversations about a character feels safer than asking that question about themselves.
Definitely.
It gives them a place to project that kind of exploration that doesn't feel quite so dangerous, close to them.
Right. They get to see what I say about the character and how I respond to them before it having to be themselves.
That's amazing. I didn't even think about that. How do you feel like passion factors into your beliefs about teaching?
Passion to me it's everything with teaching. I have to be always learning, always really in the trenches with them, really writing alongside them. And I have to really care about what we're doing. And I think their passion also kind of feeds off of that. Even if they're not excited about the same book that I'm excited about, them seeing that passion and engagement and excitement around reading, it creates a safe space for them to have that excitement too.
Right.
And where that's just our culture in our class. We read, and we share books and we talk excitedly about them.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And seeing you do that, like you modeling that the classroom is a safe space to get excited about things.
Right.
It like opens that door for them.
Yeah, and middle schoolers are great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're awesome.
Because they haven't quite shut down. They haven't quite started to actively manage that, like, do I appear cool part of themselves yet.
Right.
That's been my perception.
Right.
Like,
And they have that urge to feel cool and to fit in.
Yeah.
But they also are young enough that they're comfortable actually talking about fitting in. And so we can actually have conversations around different social pressures that they feel.
Right.
Different pressures in the way that we can respond to them as the adults in their lives too.
Yeah.
They love talking about moments whenever kids don't necessarily feel heard, and then that informs myself too, because it's causing me to always reflect and to always be mindful of the fact that they are 12 and that's what it's like to be 12.
Yeah. It's a totally different and special experience
Right.
at that age. Yeah. How do you feel like the habits of mind and heart fit in when you're in terms of your relationship building with your students? Like, do the habits help give you a framework in which to talk about like the relationships you have with them, or how does it?
I would say that the habits of mind and heart are something that we can't really say we do unless they see us model them. And they're insightful, they're intuitive, they're perceptive, and if you're treating them with respect, that's what you're going to get back.
Right.
That's really a trend with middle schoolers. If you're mindful in how you set up their classroom and how you use your time together,
Right.
those are all things that they pick up too, and then they carry over to each other, and the way that you respond to them in discussions starts to become the way that they respond to each other too.
Right.
And so just being mindful of the way we interact,
Right.
the words I use, and the time and space I make for things that they care about
Right.
really helps them extend that to other people.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you're being very mindful of building their ability to form relationships with their teachers at this foundational level of 6th and 7th grade, because that is something they're going to have to, their skill they're going to have as they go throughout the rest of their academic career.
Definitely, there's a lot of coaching around that. There's a lot of intentional coaching around academic problem solving,
Okay.
advocating for yourselves, learning to trust your teachers,
Yeah.
knowing that if you have a problem that we want you to actively come to us, that it's not a bother. So many times they'll say, I don't want to bother you, or are you busy, or they assume that at first. And so it's time and time again of actually making the time, setting aside what you're doing to actually hear their concern, hear their problem and help them. And it carries over into other years and other classes, and encouraging them to go see that teacher, noticing little things that they do and noticing when they do that on their own, so that then they know that not only do you want them and expect them to ask questions, but that you really admire them for asking questions.
Right, and like rewarding and recognizing the effort that it takes to like go the extra mile and stay after class, or like send you an email when they need clarification about something, because it takes effort to do that, and vulnerability too, to just admit like I didn't really understand this. So like rewarding that, their willingness to do that, I guess, is really important. Yeah. What amazes you the most about your students?
Our students are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
They really are. I would say the thing that really strikes me about 6th and 7th graders, and ours in particular, is how open they are in discussions, to share their own stories and to also validate and show compassion whenever other people have the courage to share their stories.
Yeah.
I've sat at the table with groups of 6th and 7th graders who have actually told each other, thank you for trusting me with that story.
Wow.
And that's powerful, that they even know to recognize the courage that took to share our stories and to share ourselves in, really just in our space.
Right.
And they're young enough that they really do still have that optimism and that feeling of power.
Yeah.
I mean, adolescents feel like they could change the world.
Right.
And they really can. It's just so awesome to get to work with them in a way that kind of gets to inspire that and like encourage that.
Yeah.
kind of a glimpse of what we'll have whenever they
right. Like
leave
if that's
us.
How they feel now.
Yeah.
Then how much once they have a chance to develop that.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what
Right.
they could do.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Well, this is awesome. I'm trying to think of anything else I should ask about. Do you feel like, since you've taught in other schools, do you feel like the relationship between faculty and students here is unique
I do.
compared to other schools?
I do. And I feel as much as we talk about the intentional choices teachers make and the things we make time for, here I notice that it really comes down to things that we do as an institution. Our schedule, the long classes, the small class sizes, the small advisories, the extra plan time that we have in order to meet one-on-one, to give that student that extra piece of feedback in between drafts, in addition to the ones that they're already getting, right? But we have a lot of extra time built in that's not necessarily extra, but instead it's more time set aside to actually be able to teach individual students instead of just the whole mass.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And then when they see that that's actually how you use your time,
Yeah.
then they become more invested too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, I love it.
They do.
So good.
They do.
Well, I think the last thing we need to do is we've just been recording everyone, just doing a thank you, right into this camera right here. So
Okay.
this will be a direct address. But yeah, you can just say thank you, or this will be the very last thing that we show before we ask people to raise their paddle.
Can I say more than just one word or
Absolutely. You
like a
can say-
sentence?
Yes, you can
Okay.
say whatever you want. Whatever
Okay.
your message of gratitude is.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Should I talk to them like I'm talking to parents? Or
Yeah.
like more just general?
It's going to be mostly parents. There will be some alums, some alumni parents,
Okay.
some board members. But you can say something like, thank you for the privilege of teaching your child or something like that. Like that would be,
Right.
You can do it as if you're talking to parents.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to guide and support such awesome young people.
Love it.
I don't know. Should I just say thank you?
You can too, just so we have it.
Okay. Thank you. Just in
Perfect.
case.
We got it. We got
Just
it
to see.
all. Yes.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Love it.
Thanks for pulling them. I love that they got to reflect.
They
I don't
did.
know.
And
I do.
They're so intuitive.
And I'm glad to hear that they actually said stuff that we do.